rushing expectation. Today we're breaking down the NFC North so you can crush your 2019 fantasy drafts. We're starting right now. What's up guys, Joe Holka here. Welcome to another video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable fantasy sports player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you click that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. If you just found me on Instagram, now's the time to smash that like button and we'll get rolling. Chicago was an interesting offensive line last year. They were above average in pass blocking, but on the ground, 28th in adjusted line yards in 2018. Some familiar faces, and Bobby Massey at right tackle was pretty much an epic disaster in 2018, especially in the run game. It looks like he's going to be the weak link again on this unit this year. The big question, though, with this O-line is definitely Kyle Long and his health, which has definitely been an issue. Top 15 pass blocker per Pro Football Focus in 2018. So let's talk a little bit about my boy Tarik Cohen. I think we're going to see more and more of these types of backs in the NFL. They're just literally offensive weapons for their team. So this is the sample size for Tarik Cohen. Matt Nagy has definitely made an effort to get him to the edge. A staggering 46% of his carries came to the edge. But what stands out the most to me is that 24.7% of his targets were at 5 or more air yards down the field. We know deeper targets can be a lot less efficient, but they are valuable in fantasy football. So let's check out chart number 2. Those deep targets I was talking about that are normally not very efficient. Tarik Cohen was actually his highest expectation score of any area of the field, 77th percentile for those valuable deep targets. I absolutely love that. Quietly, he was efficient through the middle as well. Could be because he rarely saw A+ in the box, but still nice to see them kind of give him those change of pace carries, and definitely where he saw the most rush attempts as well. So let's move on to some of the advanced metrics. Probably the most unsurprising chart to date. Cohen performed well above expectation as a receiver, and his air yards per target also reaches the top 15th percentile overall, but he basically smashed every metric based on big plays. That includes rush attempts, like I thought. He rarely saw A+ defenders in the box, but that also helped him reach the second level at an insanely high clip. 98th percentile in my sample as far as second level yards per attempt. And as I mentioned before, one of my favorite stats is time behind the line of scrimmage. It can be a very predictive measurement for patience, but it also can be indicative of usage and seeing design plays to get a player in space into the edge. Nagy's done a great job of that. It's a positive indicator of big plays more often than not, and that's highlighted here. As far as drafting Tarik Cohen this year, it's an interesting range from a season-long perspective at the position. You get Cohen at around the late 5th, maybe early 6th range as far as his ADP and PPR drafts. The same range as someone like James White. Very similar expectation there. Austin Ekeler is also a solid consolation prize a bit later if you decide to wait. His ADP is creeping up as well. We definitely just talked about him on the last video, so make sure and check that one out. The elephant in the room, obviously, is incoming rookie David Montgomery, who just scored in his preseason debut. That always seems to affect ADP for some reason or another, but this guy could be a stud. They did sign Mike Davis as well, who I would much rather actually have Tarik Cohen be competing with Jordan Howard for touches. He's basically got hands like feet at this point. Not a Jordan Howard fan. I think it's actually a lot tougher for kind of trying to grab more touches this year against Montgomery and Davis. Both are capable receivers as well. So I think that White and Ekeler probably more safe in this range, but the fact remains that Cohen has immense upside and talent. So there's going to definitely be some usable weeks in DFS in my opinion, but in season long, as much as I would like to package this analysis otherwise, a breakout here is tough to envision based on his projected workload. By the way, guys, if you've ever found any value in any of my videos or live streams, one of the best ways to support what I'm doing here for free is to throw me the follow over on Twitter. But if you're new to the community, I'm also doing a ton of content exclusive only to Instagram. So you can take a few seconds, follow me over there. I'd really appreciate it. Always like to touch on the offensive line first. The Detroit Lions, definitely an underwhelming offensive line in 2018. 20th in adjusted line yards per Football Outsiders. Not much should change this year outside of Frank Ragnow moving to center. His natural position outside of 2018, where he looked pretty uncomfortable actually at guard at times as a rookie, but that is clearly not the story here. Thanks again to Jason Moore for the shout out on the Fantasy Footballers podcast last week. He is definitely the poster boy for Carry On Nation. Rushing expectation just so happens to be right there with you, Jason. All right, in chart number 1, this is one of those cases where the player actually ran an above average percentage of his rush attempts behind the offensive line's strength. So to the left side in this case, and he was also targeted either behind the line of scrimmage or from 4 to 0 air yards, a whopping 92.3% of his targets. So let's see how Kerryon graded out as far as his efficiency in terms of his rushing expectation. With Theo Riddick cut, the first question that I had when I dug into Kerryon was, could he shoulder the load of a good chunk of those targets left behind through the air? And I think he can. He ranked in the 90th and 81st percentile in regards to the two segments that he saw the most targets. Check that box. On the ground, he finished within the 83rd percentile up the gut, where he was seeing 41% of his carries. So basically the three spots where he saw touches the most frequently, he far surpassed the expectation of his offensive line in front of him. This is bullish for me, especially for a back that should see an increased role in 2019. I almost had a double take when I saw this chart because it reminded me so much of Joe Mixon, so definitely check out the video of his rushing expectation that came out last week. But the biggest difference here is that Mixon is currently carrying a second round price tag in fantasy drafts, which is probably worth it, and you can stack Kerryon in the beginning of the 5th from what I've seen. So that feels like an absolute steal because I'm a sucker for a few things that stand out right away. He's a 3-down back, he's a good value, and he's a talented player. So taking the Detroit offensive line out of it for a second, in Kerryon's rookie season, he had a success rate of 50+% on the ground and through the air. That's one of those rare situations where a back actually saw one of those low air yards per target scores, but was actually well above his expectation in efficiency. So the reason for that and why this feels so bullish to me is it was highlighted by his 77th percentile big play rate per target and 90th percentile elusiveness rating. So he was breaking those plays almost on his own in the open field, which I love to see. Talented guy. He made a ton of big plays on the ground as well. 94th percentile second level yards per attempt, 92nd percentile big play rate per attempt with a very respectable 68th percentile stuff rate for not a lot of help in front of him. So finally, I mentioned a lot, but one of my favorite stats, time behind the line of scrimmage, 86th percentile. It always means a lot more to me for a rookie in particular, but also one that was performing well in a suboptimal environment. It's Kerryon season, guys. My boy Jason Moore definitely got there first, but maybe there's room for two flags on that hill. Kerryon Johnson, one of my guys in 2019, and rushing expectation supports that. Definitely expect the Green Bay Packers offensive line to be strong again in 2019. 7th in adjusted line yards per Football Outsiders last year, led by David Bakhtiari. 25th in run blocking, but number 1 overall in pass blocking per Pro Football Focus last year. And they did have a nice free agent acquisition in Billy Turner at right guard. Brian Beluga is someone that struggled quite a bit in run blocking last year, but he is top 10 in pass blocking per PFF. So there's definitely a little bit more injury concerns there with Beluga. More often than not, he's been someone that has struggled with that in the past. But if they can stay healthy, definitely think that this offensive line is going to be above average again. Aaron Jones, this is someone that I have watched quite a bit dating back to his college days. I actually got to do an RSP film room with the great Matt Waldman, so that was a great experience. But yeah, he's someone that had an above average percent of his runs to the right and the left end and saw pretty massive number of his targets, 5 or more air yards down the field, 27.1%. That's pretty crazy. It's almost a wide receiver type distance there that we see, but let's see how that translated to efficiency after baking in that high expectation behind this strong offensive line we were just talking about. Unsurprisingly, getting to the edge behind Bakhtiari was a very high expected success rate. Jones actually surpassed that expectation, however, and performed much better when running behind the strength of that offensive line towards the left side. Right up the gut, 40% of his rush attempts. He also did better than what was expected from him. Love to see that. Would have been nice to see his efficiency higher on those deep targets he was seeing, but nonetheless, those are valuable data points to have, that he's not scared to get those type of passes and that Rodgers isn't scared to look there as well. His best area of the field through the air was actually behind the line of scrimmage, where he provided a 94th percentile expectation score in a small sample, but I like this so far. Let's move on to those advanced stats. 61st and 58th percentile on the ground and through the air respectively. It may look modest, but it honestly can't go understated how tough it is for them to realize an above average expectation score in my metrics for such a good offensive line. So a 54% success rate is very impressive for a rookie. 91st percentile second level yards per attempt, 90th air yards per target. solid scores in big play rate on the ground and through the air, but also made things happen after the catch with an 82nd percentile score. The one knock is that he rarely saw A-plus defenders in the box, but does anyone actually see that changing in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense? I certainly don't. It's kind of a non-issue for me. Don't expect to see a drop-off in efficiency in 2019. If only Aaron Jones was seeing the volume of some of the other elite backs in the league, he could honestly provide league-winning upside. It's definitely an issue, though, unless we can see him get to that 200-plus carries mark and add in a significant pass-catching role. He could easily go overlooked with all the kind of shiny objects as running back assets in the late third round this year. But things break right. I see no reason why Jones couldn't outperform guys like Leonard Fournette, Marlon Mack, who are going off the board in that same range, but they probably have a larger range of outcomes even than Aaron Jones in 2018. Definitely carry a little bit of downside in the pass game as well. Late third round feels like way too low for this type of talent. Someone like Aaron Jones, rushing expectation supports that, and if we see signs of increased volume early, it's definitely a player that I'm going to be taking advantage of in DFS until he's priced accordingly. Dalvin Cook, this is an interesting distribution of touches to say the very least. Only 39.8% of his runs came through the middle, and a staggering 67.3% of his targets came at or behind the line of scrimmage. So surprisingly, Cook rarely ran to the right end, but when he did, it was the only lane on the ground he performed above his expectation, though a very small sample, as I said. This is a pretty ugly looking chart. There's no doubt about it, finishing below his already low expectations behind this poor line. But perhaps we can see some positives through the air where he was far more efficient with Kirk Cousins constantly kind of under siege this past year. It makes sense that he saw a lot of short targets and dump offs. This is where Cook was at his best. It's tough to look past a 9th percentile outcome on the ground, but it's relevant to that scheme and talent should see a significant change this coming season. But he was stuffed at a high rate, ranking in the 18th percentile overall there as well. But when he did reach the second level, he was explosive, 92nd percentile in second level yards per attempt, 74th in big play rate per attempt. So one stat that I do love is his time behind the line of scrimmage. However, this may not be due to his patience, unfortunately. It's probably his propensity to kind of bounce things outside. He rarely really found holes through the middle, and this is something to monitor this coming season if he can be a little bit more disciplined between the tackles. Hard to fault him in that situation last year, but we already talked about why he probably saw a lot of shorter targets than the average pass-catching running back, but he also didn't do that much after the catch as you would like to see from a player so dynamic in space at times. There's certainly an argument for how valuable a 3-down role is in today's NFL, and volume is king. Cook had 3+ receptions in all of his starts but one in 2018, but I'm just more comfortable taking other running backs in this range before Dalvin Cook. Health is still a major concern for this guy, even with a projected heavy workload on the ground, a new offensive coordinator. Guys like Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Damian Williams, or even waiting another round for someone like Kerryon Johnson or Derrick Henry is my preferred draft strategy over ending up at this uncertain running back environment in Minnesota. Cook's not one of my guys. If you want to learn more about rushing expectation 2019 so you can dominate your fantasy football draft, start now by hitting the subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner so you don't miss anything. Have a ton of DFS courses on demand as well, so be sure to check those out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.